Welcome to Microsoft SaaS Academy. We're thrilled to have you on this journey, no matter what kind of company you are, either company going through a transformation from a traditional transaction-based software model, either being a company building SaaS solution from the day one. Our program was inspired by our CEO's vision, Satya Nadella's, that every business will be a software business, build applications, use advanced analytics, and provide SaaS services. And we really do see the shift in the market, and we did collect best practices from, first of all, ourselves, being one of the biggest SaaS players in the market, but also from our work with our customers and partners. First of all, a couple of disclaimers before we actually get started. You might hear a term ISV, which stands for Independent Software Vendor, Software Provider. Secondly, it's important to understand that SaaS does not actually mean cloud, and if you're performing modernization, it doesn't mean that it's going to be SaaS. But we do see these events happening interchangeably, because the transition to the SaaS actually triggers the modernization of the existing solution, and as well, companies are looking into the expansion into the new markets, and this is where they actually start looking into public cloud, because it has a lot of value to offer in this case. Another term which will be used is economies of scale. In traditional production, it's called subtractive manufacturing. Basically, the more you produce, the higher margins it's possible to achieve. It also works in the software industry, but it will only work, it will truly work in case if you do not produce customizable software. Because if you keep producing customizable software, you will have to spend a lot of resources actually supporting and maintaining every single installation, but as well the underlying costs of infrastructure will not be shared among all the customers. So the costs of the infrastructure will be only dedicated to that single installation, and thus it's not possible to actually achieve economies of scale. Which brings us to another point, the SaaS maturity. We can look at it from different angles. First of all, it's overall organizational angle. Did the structure of the organization change? Did business processes change? But also from a product standpoint of view, did you adjust your product to the new business model? But I think it's fair to start this track with actually motivations, why customers, but also software providers prefer the new consumption-based model. And customers, if we talk about the motivations for the customers, first of all, they do prefer to pay only for what's been used. And they prefer not to invest any more in their own IT and hardware, the operations and environment management, and they just prefer to buy services which work. Business owners, line of business managers, they do get more and more control over the buying cycle and can actually make decisions themselves. But there are also financial and tax reasons why customers prefer to purchase SaaS solutions, as OPEX model compare more immediate tax deduction benefits compared to the CAPEX model. For the software providers, number one is that customers are actually demanding a SaaS model, and it's proven with the examples in the market that SaaS companies actually able to achieve higher valuations compared to the traditional license-based software companies. And another financial impact, that it's easier and cheaper to support customers on one single platform. You will not be spending time and resources on supporting each and every customizable installation of different customers. And of course, there are some joint motivations for both customers and partners. So first of all, it's faster time to market for the new features. Customers will be able to access new functionality faster, but also it is more secure environment. Although there are different company profiles out there in the market, no matter what kind of the SaaS, no matter what stage of SaaS adoption they are, there are still different similarities, and there are some common ideas on how to address the common challenges. And for that, we try to collect common practices from our work with different software companies. And in general, there are 4 main pillars for the SaaS adoption. Firstly, it's of course business objectives and setting up the goals. And I will describe general concepts about different angles, how to look at the SaaS businesses and what to focus on depending on the type of company you are. And then talking a little bit more on the processes and the organization. How does SaaS actually affect the organization and the processes? But simply what's important to understand that SaaS is software as a service. So focus has to be actually on delivering the frictionless experience to customers and not just great features and products like we used to be. And then the next pillar is about how does the business model translates into what actually we're going to build and sell. The value proposition of it, how do we price and package that? And it's a very simple sentence here about the organizational technical capabilities, but in fact, half of our SaaS Academy program is about that. Our technical track addresses the different aspects of building solutions and technical capabilities of it. And lastly, you need to take solution to the market. And for the go-to-market strategy, we have at least 3 sessions in the business track supporting that. So for the first pillar, business objectives, I would like briefly explain the profit horizon and different sales models and comment which strategies are mostly common for each of these profiles. According to the Technology as a Service playbook, there is a defining factor for the strategy of the SaaS company: profit horizon. Basically, when a company considers it profitable, applying general accounting principles. With this model, many of the startups will fall into the future category, but also companies without a clear SaaS transformation strategy, meaning that it will take them a few years to capture the market share, build customer base, and create economies of scale of significant for profits. In this model, many of the startups will fall into the future category, but also companies without a clear SaaS transformation story, meaning that it will take them a few years to capture the market share, build customer base, and create economies of scale significant for profits. Some companies, in fact, being highly evaluated without making any profits, which from the outside, some companies, in fact, are highly evaluated without making any profits, which from the outside, for the general public, looks like nonsense. This is because there are believers, such as investors, first adopters, and analysts, that has provided adequate support for the company. The critical success metrics for these offers is the unit of future value, basically something that will be monetized at scale, for example, users buying subscriptions. These goals, 3 goals these companies are chasing. First of all, it's finding the right business model, building the right product, which sells, and building the customer base. That is why the investments in marketing are reaching 50% for this kind of profile. Other category is more mature businesses, which have an ability to achieve profits within 2 to 5 years, perhaps scale-ups which have figured out the market fit and the business model, so they will fall into the mid-term category. Other companies going through the transformation from license-based software to SaaS, or it can also be companies going through the SaaS transformation from the license-based software to SaaS, but are not yet profitable from the new business model. Perhaps these companies have enough customers or have a stable strategy to get it, enough customers on the platform in the time frame to achieve the economies of scale required to be profitable. And finally, we have the companies with the current profit horizon, which are basically expected to generate revenue and profits within the year or 2, so the horizon for them identifies as current. These are SaaS companies that are focused on maximizing the revenue and margin opportunities surrounding their SaaS offers as soon as possible. And instead of capturing the market share at the expense of the profitability, these SaaS companies are focused on maximizing the revenue and margin opportunities surrounding their SaaS offers as soon as possible. Now, the strategy for these three different categories will be different in terms of distributing resources within the organization, but also different strategies for the product, pricing, packaging, and so on. So we need to look at common competitive advantages, first of all, in order to map out the strategy. First of all, it is unique capabilities. SaaS providers are finding it very hard to compete on features since the cost of producing the software is getting lower and lower, so they're being forced to compete on pricing. Of course, features determine the market share, that's why SaaS startups quickly put their new features in the market. It does work, but mostly in the beginning. It is a very obvious example of the Snapchat and their stories functionality. It was a great functionality, but currently all social networks utilize it. Even LinkedIn has launched this feature some time ago. And again, with the fast speed and low price of the development, commoditization and price wars are inevitable. So it's hard to keep the market share based only on the unique capabilities. The next one is vendor lockdown. Basically, this competitive advantage gave ability to some of the companies build software empires, as customers had huge investments into the product and surrounding implementation and supporting offers. But this strategy becomes more and more risky as customers actually prefer not to have a lockdown on the vendor and they expect fast return on the investment. So if there is a competition in the market which can provide it, they probably will be preferable. Virality is something what every founder wants. This is basically when product or service almost sells itself, when there is an organic demand for the product, when customers recommend it to other customers and product has a good reputation, with that company does not have an expensive burden of investing in the marketing. The example of the good implementation of virality is Uber. And this is a good play for the future horizon type of the companies because, as we know, the investments in the marketing for this kind of companies reach 50% of their spending. Next one is network effect. And this is the phenomenon where a service is valuable when more people actually use it. This is not the same as a market share. Again, Uber here is a good example. The more drivers are on the platform, the more value customers are actually able to get out of it. Network effect can also be achieved by a technology standard, building your brand into a standard, or have a compatibility with surrounding ecosystem of products from other providers. It is a good play for the consumer apps, but also it can be utilized for B2B. For example, our Power Apps platform becomes more valuable if it supports more out-of-the-box integrations in it. The next one is ability to deliver faster in the new markets. This is really where cloud comes in handy. I believe this is really difficult to expand to the new region if the current offering is on-premise based or hosted through the local hosting provider. In addition, here comes different regulatory requirements based on the geography, so utilizing cloud for this delivery might ease up things a lot. Capturing new market share is definitely a strategy for the companies with the current profit horizon. Diverse product and service revenue streams basically gives more ways to make money. HP never made money on printers, but they did pretty well on ink. This is not only good for the provider, but also benefits the customer because they get more complete solution. And this is an area of particular weakness for most of the SaaS companies. More and more features get added, as well as services, all inside one offer. Although it might be a good strategy in the beginning to keep friction low for early adopters, but in the longer run, there is a need to diversify revenue streams. The obvious starting point is diversifying the product portfolio by surrounding the core offer with complementary modules or services. Yes, of course, since it is a SaaS, many of the operations and services are included in the price of the new offer. But good news is that customers are still willing to pay for many of the same services. Some of the companies manage to get 20% revenue coming from the professional services. So, there is an opportunity to monetize traditional professional, educational, and premium support services, both for the midterm, but also for the current profitability horizon profiles. So another thing to look at is sales models, because that, of course, has big reflections on the marketing, sales strategy, but also overall organization and the product. In a nutshell, we can divide it in two categories. First of all, it is high-touch sales model, basically when customers need help in deciding whether or not adopt certain products, and majority of the high-touch businesses sell to other businesses, so it is B2B. Some products do sell themselves that will fall into the low-touch sales model category, and it is designed for the majority of the customers to purchase it without interaction with a human being. And the primarily sales channels for this kind of software is the website, email marketing, free trial, and basically very, very low friction free trial to start and onboard the customer. So these economies actually really depend on the long-term satisfaction of the customers, and most likely it is sold monthly to monthly basis subscription, both for B2B and B2C. And of course, there is also a hybrid sales approach, basically where these two models coexist together. And in Microsoft, of course, because we cover a huge variety of different customers and segments, we do have both. We do support both of these. So keeping these profiles in mind, the starting point for the SaaS offer would be actually to identify the segment. We need to define our target, basically what type or size is the company, how do they prefer to buy, is it low or high touch sales model. And for example, in Microsoft, we have a big variety of segments. We have enterprise, we have small, medium businesses, small, medium customers. There is also a differentiation by the industry, for example, financial, educational, government, healthcare, and many more. And the pricing model and the way we work with these companies and customers is actually different. They have different buying behavior. Enterprises purchase Azure differently from the startups. Small companies renew their subscription without Microsoft involvement. So buying behavior is different for these kind of segments. And even product features might differ. For example, we have teams for education, we have teams for frontline workers, and recently we also launched Microsoft Cloud for financial sector, Microsoft Cloud for manufacturing, and other. So once you identify the target segment, the next step is actually to build packageable offer, and for that you need to look into the value proposition, which we have another webinar on this in this business track, but also packaging and pricing, which again we have in this business track.